This week, the class of 2018 posed for their first photo on the steps of the Capitol building. Visual proof of a political milestone. A record number of women were elected to the U.S. House of Representatives during the midterms. Democrats won the women's vote by tapping into anger. After 2 years of Trump, many voters were fed up and frustrated.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the you can do anything.
Yeah, that Access Hollywood tape and all those comments about women didn't do much damage back in 2016 or 2018 for that matter. 50% of white women still voted Republican, and Trump retains control of the Senate.
Was the Me Too movement supposed to accomplish more?
This grotesque and coordinated character assassination.
It all looks a lot like what happened 26 years ago.
My working relationship became even more strained when Judge Thomas began to use work situations to discuss sex.
I, Clarence Thomas,
Do solemnly swear.
do solemnly swear
Clarence Thomas was confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court despite Anita Hill's sexual harassment allegations. And just like today, American women were angry and energized and voted for change.
But their victory was short-lived. Just 2 years later, Republicans took control of Congress, wiping out much of the class of 1992. So what about the class of 2018? Joining me now is Rebecca Traister, author of Good and Mad, The Revolutionary Power of Women's Anger. So you wrote this book about women's anger as a catalyst for progress in American politics. We've just had the midterm elections. In the last election, 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump, and in these elections, not much change, about 50%. Was that a surprise?
Well, it's not a surprise because historically, as long as we've been keeping track of these things, white women have supported conservative politics, fundamentally white patriarchal policy and political parties. And that extends even before we've been keeping track of it. That was one of the arguments for suffrage for white women, was that if white women could vote, they'd counteract the votes of the newly enfranchised African-American men after emancipation. So there's always been the use of white women for conservative politics.
For the last few years, it's become very fashionable to call yourself a feminist. But I'm wondering now if instead of progress for women's rights or feminism, if there's a bit of a backlash with President Trump as a prime example. Here's what he said when he was asked if he was a feminist about a year ago. He said, "No, I wouldn't say I'm a feminist. I think that would be maybe going too far. I'm for women. I'm for men. I'm for everyone." Is there a bit of a backlash here, and is he leading one?
Oh, no, he's not leading a backlash. I mean, he's the product of a backlash against feminism. He's a product of a backlash against racial integration. He's a product, his presidency comes as part of a long brewing backlash against the progress of women, of people of color in the United States. So yes, to that extent, he's representative of a backlash. He ran on an explicitly racist, misogynistic, xenophobic campaign, and he won the presidency, thanks in part to the Electoral College. So yes, to some degree, is there a backlash? Is it new? No.
One of the last times that we heard that it was the Year of the Women was after the Anita Hill testimony, where she was accusing Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment. Now again, we've seen Christine Blasey Ford. She wasn't ridiculed like Anita Hill way back in 1992 when she was making her accusations, but she wasn't believed either. I mean, was that, how did you see that?
The comparison between the two?
Yeah, I mean, have things really changed at all since 1992 on that front?
When it comes to how the Senate Judiciary heard, no, she wasn't believed. In that respect, it hadn't changed. The degree to which she wasn't ridiculed, I don't think we can leave out her race and the fact that she was a white, married, middle-class woman. Anita Hill was an African-American, unmarried woman who herself has said that the fact that she was single, the fact that she was black and a peer of a Supreme Court nominee rendered her sort of incomprehensible to the white men on the Senate Judiciary Committee. It's interesting, some of the actual men on the Senate Judiciary Committee had not changed. Orrin Hatch and Chuck Grassley sat on that Judiciary Committee for Anita Hill, and also for Christine Blasey Ford. But here are some things that have changed. If you look at the Democratic side of that Senate Judiciary Committee, Kamala Harris, Mazie Hirono, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, you were not looking at a Democratic side that was just all white men.
So she wasn't ridiculed. That's progress.
Oh, she was ridiculed. Orrin Hatch, they were more careful about it. But Orrin Hatch said she's a little confused. It was just short of saying she's a little bit nutty and a little bit slutty, which is what they said about Anita Hill. But also, again, she was a white middle-class woman, and they knew it would have been more challenging for them, especially in a climate that is post-Me Too, post-Women's March, to have openly mocked her as unhinged and loose.
That's what we're taking as progress.
There is progress and regress happen simultaneously all the time.
Rebecca Traister, thank you so much for
Thanks
talking to me.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.